All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 25th City of Glendale Audit Committee meeting. And our guests here in attendance, we don't bite, so you can sit up front. But anyways, thank you. So let's move on with the first item on the agenda here.
The agenda for the Audit Committee meeting for July 25, 2024 was posted on July 18, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
I think we just need to.
I'm going to conduct a roll call now. Committee member Edwin Bellin.
Right.
Committee member Ed Khachaturian.
Here.
Committee member Jack Mavian is absent. Committee member Chair Alex Parahon.
Present.
Thank you. And item 2A, posting of the agenda. The agenda of the Audit Committee meeting of July 25, 2024 was posted on July 18, 2024 on the bulletin board outside the City Hall.
Great, thank you. All right, I have no oral communications or cards here, so I guess we'll move on to the next item. No callers either?
We don't have callers, Chair. Next item on the agenda, item 4A, approval of minutes. Minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on April 25, 2024.
I move to approve.
We can't
Sure.
right now.
Chair, perhaps we want to bring this item back so that we would be able to have enough people here to cast a vote. I think we would have one abstention unless you'd be prepared to vote on that, Commissioner.
No, I didn't get a chance to view the recording of the meeting from last time, and I was not here, so.
So we'll bring this agenda item back up at the end.
Yes, thank you. All right, great. Let's move on to the action items we have today.
Item number 5, action items. 5A, election of Audit Committee Chair.
Mary, do we have any nominations?
I move to nominate Mr. Alex Parahon.
I second.
We have a motion and second.
Any other nominations I think we would ask?
Well, I guess I can't nominate myself, so can I?
No?
Nominate myself. Nominate, I guess.
Committee members Edwin Bellin.
Yes.
Committee member Ed Khachaturian.
Yes.
Committee member Jack Mavian is absent. And Chair Alex Parahon.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, both of you guys, for trusting me on doing another year of this. Great chairing the audit committee. It's great working with not just both of you guys here and the rest of the committee members, but also the staff. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, action items 5B, election of Audit Committee Secretary.
I nominate Annie Anastasian. Oh,
Chair Parahon, typically this position has been filled by a staff member. While you are free to nominate one of the committee members, it is a position that is typically filled by appointing a staff member. I think we've spoken with Ani and she's prepared to continue in that service.
great. Thank you for the update.
So,
And-
does
and
this
maybe
require a
we can-
motion?
And maybe we can also note for the record that Mr. Mavian is present.
Yes, please. Let's record his attendance. Are any other nominations for secretary? No. All right, nomination closed.
Can someone bring me up to speed a bit?
We're nominating for secretary right now, for audit
Secretary.
committee secretary. So we're doing is 5B.
And what have we done so far?
We approved the audit committee chair.
Okay, sounds good.
So because we are appointing a staff member, I don't believe we need a vote unless you'd like to nominate someone from the committee to serve in the position of secretary.
Great, anyone else? No, right? Jack, you have no nomination for secretary? Like yourself? Just kidding.
I wouldn't nominate myself.
No worries. We got a experienced staff person that's willing to take the role.
So no further actions necessary.
No. All right, great. Next item,
Under action items, 5C, annual report to city council.
do I have that report? It's in my hand. Oh, I don't have an electronic format. Let's see. Let me see, where is it? All right, here we go. All right, so the annual report that annually the chair presents to the city council reads as follows. Dear Mayor Astranian and city council members, each year the audit committee must report our actions and activities to the city council per Glendale Municipal Code Section 2.82100. The purpose of this memo is to communicate our activities for the period of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. The audit committee met 4 times during the fiscal year 2023-24, where we were provided with financial updates and internal audit activity reports. Since 2018, the audit committee has conducted paperless meetings in keeping with the city council's priorities of fiscal responsibilities and sustainability. I am pleased to report that paperless meetings methodology has continued to save costs in printing, assembling, and dispatching documents. The audit committee assists the city council in reviewing financial information and management reports and by providing independent recommendation regarding the scope, priority, and the methods of audit-related activities within the city. The financial activities by the audit committee included: we received audit communication from Clifton Larson Allen LLP on the responsibilities, scopes, and activities for the annual audit of the city for the period ending June 30th, 2023. Received and reviewed annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Received financial reports from the finance department and city management. Where's my next page? And internal audit activities by the audit committee included, hold on, did I miss a page? No. All right. Received and reviewed the fiscal year 2022-23 work plan status update, the fiscal year 23-24 internal audit annual work plan, and monitored progress in addressing the risk priorities for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Reviewed internal audit reports as they were issued, were briefed on all completed audit assignments by internal audit staff and department representatives, reviewed the progress of quarterly follow-up activities, and discussed the action plan related to outstanding audits issues reaching specified criteria. Number 3, monitored the types of projects performed by internal audit staff to ensure ongoing independence in the internal audit function. The audit committee members wish to express our appreciation to the city staff, support of our efforts, and to keep us informed of events and issues in the city. We look forward to continuing to serve the interests of the city of Glendale in the coming year. Respectfully submitted, the chair of the audit committee and audit committee members. Signed July 25th, 2024. Thank you. Well, do we need a motion to submit this? Okay. Someone move to approve the annual report?
Move to approve the annual report.
Second.
All right. All right, roll call, please.
Committee member Edwin Bellin.
Here.
Committee member Ed Khashadurian.
Yes.
Committee member Jack Mavian.
Aye.
And Chair Alex Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Let's move on to the next item, which would be reports and information.
Item number 6, reports and information. 6A, report from Clifton Larson Allen LLP on the audit of fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. Alvin De Leon, Finance Accounting Manager.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Alvin De Leon, Accounting Manager in Finance Department. The city is engaged with Clifton Larson Allen, LLP or CLA, to perform auditing services for the city with an initial 3-year term ending on February 28, 2023, with 3 one-year renewal options. Currently, the city is in its second one-year renewal option with CLA to perform the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. CLA staff started their preliminary audit fieldwork for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024, last early June. And prior to CLA's preliminary fieldwork, accounting staff actually worked with various department sections such as accounts payable, purchasing, city treasurer's office, IT department, payroll, and GDP utility customer service to perform in completing each section's internal control and operations procedure inquiries from CLA. CLA staff will perform their final fieldwork for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024, starting about the last week of this coming September, and it will take about 3 weeks to complete the audit. Most of the field work will be done remotely, and CLA staff will come to the office on as-needed basis. Finance is planning to have the first draft of the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or AFR, completed by mid-October, and we expect to get an opinion letter from CLA towards the last week of November, hopefully before Thanksgiving, and we will present the AFR to the City Council on December 10th. And we will be back here on January next year to present the audit results and the adopted AFR. Now I will turn it over to Ms. Daphne Munoz, the partner at Clifton Larson Allen LLP, to present the CLA's audit plan for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. Thank you, Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Hello,
Hello.
welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, my name is Daphne Munoz, and I'm a principal at Clifton Larson Allen, and I am pleased to be in front of you today to present our communications during the planning stage of the audit for the fiscal year, June 30, 2024. First, I'm going to go over our scope of our services. We will be doing an audit of the financial statements for the city, which also includes the financial statements of the electric utility and water utility funds. So there are separate financial statements issued for both the electric and utility funds. And the city spent more than $750,000 in federal expenditures. So therefore, we will be performing what we call a single audit of federal grants in accordance with uniform guidance. And that is it's more of a compliance. It's in conjunction with the financial statements. We have to do the financial statements audit first before we can do because it makes reference. It's a supplementary information attached to the financial statements. So that's a compliance audit of federal grants. And then the city, the transit department of the city submits a report to the National Transit Database. And so we perform agreed upon procedures and certify those submission to National Transit Database. And then the Housing Authority also submits a REACT report to HUD, and we do some agreed upon procedures and certify the reports that are submitted to the HUD. And also we perform we perform an audit of the financial statements of the ICIS JPA, for which the city is a member of, and also the city does the books for the JPA. I want to go over our responsibilities. So the main responsibility of our engagement is to express an opinion on the financial statements, and we will be performing our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as generally accepted government auditing standards. That's actually required for the uniform guidance. Our audit will be designed to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. We will consider internal control over financial reporting, but we will not be providing an opinion on the internal control. We will communicate significant matters that would come to our attention that are related to the financial statement audit. Management responsibilities. Management is responsible for the preparation of financial statements, as well as designing and adhering to internal controls over financial reporting. and of course, providing information for our audit, including written representations at the end of the audit, basically representing to us that they have provided us all pertinent information for our audit. Alwyn talked about the timing, so we have performed our interim audit in June, and this is when we do our planning. We update our documentation of our processes of internal control over cash disbursement, utility billing, and all the different departments. And during this time, we do our inquiry and documentation and review those internal controls. In September and October, we will be doing our what we call a final phase field work of the audit. That's when we will be doing substantive testing over account balances at year end, which some of this testing will include confirmation, some cutoff procedures, vouching payments to subsequent payments, and vouching receivables to subsequent receipts. And then the third phase is the preparation of the ACFR, for which, again, that is expected to be done by November, and we will be issuing or presenting it to the council in December. So the good news, there's no big accounting reporting requirements this year. The last 2 years, the city had to implement 87 and 96, which is it required a lot of work for the city staff. This year, it's GASB 100, which is the accounting for changes and error corrections. Unless there's a prior period adjustment, this one will not affect the city. And I think that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Munoz. One question I have is, didn't state any hours that you'd be dedicating to the audit you'll be doing compared to prior year? Is there an increase in hours going to be added this time?
So usually it takes us about 500 hours from start to finish with all the different segment of the engagement. That's about the average. So the last 2 years, there's extra because of the 87 and 96, but this year there is some new accounting, or actually not reporting standards, but actually auditing standards would require documentation over information technology. But I would expect it to be about the same.
And I heard from Mr. De Leon earlier that majority of this audit is conducted remotely. Is that correct?
Yes.
So with all the databases that the city uses, is there more hours being spent trying to import data from that source, or how does that work? Because this is the first time I heard that we're doing majority of the work remotely compared to your staff coming on here.
Yeah, the good thing that came out of COVID, I guess, is we know we could do things electronically, and with communication with IT, the city's IT and our IT, we make sure that our access to the city's system are very secured. So we do have read-only access to the system, ERP system, for which we can drill down and look at. The city's ERP system has very electronic, even the attachments for supporting Baxter are all in the Munis. So that allowed us to actually do the audit mostly remotely. But if for some reason that some of the information that we need requires a lot of work on the city staff about uploading information, then that's when we go out and sensitive information like payroll.
Yeah, well, thank goodness, yeah, for that technology based out that we can actually do work remotely. And just want to see if my colleagues here have any other questions?
Yeah, do you guys utilize at CLA your own proprietary repository of documentation so that you're only asking for specific things that need to be audited versus having access to everything at the
We
city?
do. We have what we call an assurance information exchange, and it's a very secured portal for which there's an administrator on the city side for which they can restrict access on who can access that portal.
Yeah, and you have your PBC lists and people
Yes,
just
it's
drop them in.
individual PBC lists, and it gives real-time updates on what's open and what's outstanding. It sends, and then we, on an annual basis, we review with city staff on who needs to be removed.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
You mentioned city staff has the admin control over the file sharing app.
So on the client side, we assign an admin that could
Restrict
restrict
access.
users, that could add and remove users on the city side.
And who is that person on the city side?
I believe it's Shujun for the city.
Okay. And which program do you guys use? So is it SharePoint or is it?
It's proprietary. It's our own. We call it Assurance Information Exchange.
And was that built on a chassis? I'm pretty sure in white label.
That will be a question for our IT, but I know it is a secured portal that we actually do ask all our clients to sign a portal agreement.
Okay, so from what I understand, we're using CLA's proprietary file sharing, encrypted information.
To upload documents, yes.
And the admin who's assigned is from the city side. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the admin for their access to our portal.
Correct.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the city may take away access,
Correct.
and you would not maintain those documents in a repository.
No, the documents in the portal stays. It's just access to those documents are
Is restricted.
The users, they actually maintain the users.
I think it might help if you explain the difference between like the PBCs that you guys are getting versus all the other documentation you might want to read and get more context.
Yeah, so typical documents that we would request, like we would select samples for, well, actually not even cash disbursements, because again, we could access that on the city. If we need a support for journal entries that is not available in the system, or if we need to look at a certain contract, bid documents, that would be the ones that will be in that portal.
Understood. Just one follow-up question. I noticed that CLA is a registered investment advisor with the SEC, as well as
We
an
do have a
accounting firm.
wealth investment, we have a wealth advisor segment of our,
And do they manage the city's funds?
yeah,
Okay.
because that would be a conflict of interest.
That's
yeah.
what that was going to be my follow-up question.
We do manage funds, but for individuals and
Understood.
companies.
Thank you.
I have one quick question unrelated to the questions that were asked. So when you're auditing statements, I'm assuming that there involves reviewing so many transactions and all of that. And I'm assuming that, you're taking a random sample of some of those. You do not go through every single item. Could you just maybe walk us through a little bit about, when you say randomly selecting, what is that process? And do you repeat the same process year after year? Or if you decide to, let's say, pull reports from, planning department as an example, it's always the same share of statements or transactions that you pull from one department, or that number may change from one year to the other?
So that number, the sample size might not change, but the threshold, the materiality threshold changes. So we audit with the concept of materiality. So based on the balances, we have what we call a planning materiality, which is normally based on prior years, because we don't have final financial statements by the time we're doing planning. So we look at last year's reports, and we perform, we calculate planning materiality, for which from that materiality we determine what will be our tolerable misstatement, and then from that we calculate what would be an individually significant amount, and that is our starting point when selecting our samples. So then we select anything that is above an individually significant item amount, depending on the opinion unit. So general fund is a different opinion unit. All other major funds are different opinion unit. And just to let you know, we do not share that materiality levels, because we do not want the auditee to know what we are looking for. And then depending on when we're doing the testing of the balances, after we have selected anything that are above ISI, and if we determine that it's our untested balance is still above our, what we call tolerable misstatement, we don't have a comfort level that we have tested enough, then that's when we're gonna do a sampling. And then that sampling will be then where we will be doing some random.
Can you share what that threshold is, or like,
I can't share the threshold. There, it's a calculation based on what we think, depending on the fund, what would be the biggest. It's based on total assets, total liabilities, revenues, or expenditures. Depending on each year, that might change. But if we think expenditures are a little bit more risky, just because there's a lot more expenditures this year, we will use that as a basis for our calculation. But as a rule, we don't give the. Because then again, we don't want the people that we are only looking anything over 20,000, because then they might do the splitting of under 20,000 and it will not count, so.
okay, thank you.
Go ahead and send it.
This is not my profession. I'm not an accountant by trade, but it seems to me that there are guardrails in place, for essentially what you're saying is we don't share the threshold so that people don't, lower below that threshold, right? And kind of the same thing happens with banks. When you go and deposit $10,000, it generates a currency transaction report. And then if something is slightly under that, might trigger a red flag, which would be a suspicious activity report. I'm just curious, why wouldn't that be the scenario? Because why aren't there guardrails in place for that, so that somebody could be proactive while knowing their threshold? And,
Well, the
you
city.
could be able to weed out any, bad actors.
I think the city
Do red flag.
itself, within their internal controls, have their own materiality when they're reviewing it. That is the guardrail within the city. But for us to have a methodology on how to determine what would we be testing, that's our first starting point. And then again, when we do our sample size, when we do random sample, we actually look for, I don't know, you can ask the staff. The staff always say that we somehow, when we select random sample, we select the one that is very odd. But but that's just how we that's how most audit firms do their sample selection based on materiality. Because again, we have to have a system of determining what would be first our individually significant items, and then from there, if we don't have enough coverage, then we'll do the sample size selection.
I have one more question.
Thank you.
So the last time the city won an award for CAFRs was in 2022. We haven't gotten one since. Is there a reason why?
No, it's probably, the city did apply for 2023. It's probably just not.
Oh, they haven't
Yes,
announced
yeah.
those yet? Oh, okay.
I
Well,
think
hopefully we get something.
I am a reviewer for other states. I'm still reviewing some financial statements, so I think it's just, you haven't received it? Oh, I think they did receive it.
Oh, I did. All right. There you go. Congratulations.
So I just have a dumb question. So when you said earlier you don't test the internal controls, and then you talked about, and he asked a question about random sampling. So do you don't do any test of control? So most of your audits just substantive testing?
Well, let me clarify. We do not provide an opinion
Right.
on internal controls. We review internal controls, and then depending on the risk, we might do test of controls based on, and then that's some.
That's
on
where
our-
you do random.
Yes, then on some of our test of controls, depending on the degree of reliability of like, it's a whole table, but then it determines if we test 22 or 60 samples out of the population. But we do test of controls, and if we're not doing test of controls, we do walkthroughs of controls to just see that what the city staff represented to us as the controls are being followed.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Ms. Munoz. Appreciate it. All right, next.
Next, under reports and information, 6P, internal audit activity report as of June 30, 2024. Natalie Minami Valdivia, Principal Internal Auditor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Platajon and fellow Audit Committee members. Natalie Minami Valdivia, Principal Internal Auditor. I am here and happy to present to you the Internal Audit Activity Report as of June 30th, 2024. I will walk you through each of the 7 sections, beginning with projects completed. And for this past quarter, Internal Audit completed 2 projects, the first one being the PCI compliance audit, and the second one being the Records Management System FileNet audit. I have 2 PowerPoint presentations to walk you through each of these audits. Give me a second to pull them up. So as you know, the PCI compliance audit is performed, or internal audit's tasked with performing it 3 times a year in advance of the external quality security assessor performing their annual assessment. And as such, generally once a year, we go through the entire PowerPoint presentation. So as this is the first time that we're presenting PCI compliance, I will be walking through the entire presentation. So the City of Glendale accepts payment cards as a form of payment for fees, and as a result is required to comply with the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, otherwise known as the PCI DSS. So who sets this PCI DSS standards? These standards are set by the 5 major credit card companies, including Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and JCB. And these standards are collectively administered by this Security Standards Council. So why do we care about PCI compliance? We care about PCI compliance because we want to protect our cardholders' data and to maintain their trust and confidence. Additionally, it is required, and if we are out of compliance, we may be subject to significant fines and penalties and/or revocation of our ability to accept credit card payments, and liability from potential fraudulent charges and damages to the city's reputation. So the PCI DSS level of compliance is based on the number of payment card transactions processed. The City of Glendale became a level 2 merchant, which is is based on 1 to 6 million transactions per year in 2018, based on its 2017 transactions. And then since then has been rated at a level 2 merchant. And as of this audit, our merchant level for 2024 had not yet been provided by the credit card organizations, and we were told that it would be anticipated to be provided by June of 2024. And subsequent to our audit completion on June 10th, the credit card organizations notified our bank, and our bank notified the city that we've actually been downgraded from a level 2 to a level 3. So to ensure compliance with the PCI DSS, the city previously hired an external quality and security assessor, or QSA, to perform an annual assessment and to prepare and submit a formal report on compliance, otherwise known as the ROC, for the city's validation. A ROC is required for level 1 merchants, but is optional for level 2 and level 3 merchants. So PCI DSS has 6 goals that include 12 requirements. I will walk you through the 6 goals, and you'll be able to see the 12 associated requirements. The first one is the first goal is to build and maintain a secure network. The second is to protect cardholder data. The third is to maintain a vulnerability management program. The fourth is to implement strong access control measures. The fifth is to regularly monitor and test the networks. And then the last one is to maintain an information security policy. So let me walk you through the different kinds of payment card data. And first, I'll walk you through that information that the city is prohibited from keeping. And that includes the chip information, the card identification number, which for American Express is located on the front of the credit card, and for all other payment card brands is located on the back of the credit card. And then lastly, the magnetic stripe information. The second category of data is that information that is prohibited from being kept unless it's encrypted, and that includes the primary account number. To reduce the city's risk, credit card numbers are not maintained by policy, and in the event that we need to write down a credit card number in order to process it, it is immediately destroyed after it's been processed using a crosscut shredder. The third type of payment card information that is allowed to be kept by the city includes the cardholder's name and also the card expiration date. So why do we do these audits? We do these audits to demonstrate ongoing compliance, to identify deficiencies timely so that we may remediate them, and to prepare for the annual audit performed by the external quality security assessor, and to raise awareness. So to ensure compliance with the PCI DSS, the city, as I mentioned, has hired a QSA to perform the annual assessment. But additionally, we, like I mentioned before, perform three PCI compliance audits ahead of the annual assessment. And the goal is to cover all the in-scope sites, systems, and the calendar tasks once per year prior to the QSA's annual assessment. So as you can see, the city has a total of 19 sites, 5 systems, and 29 tasks. So a total of 53 items are in scope. And then for this audit, this was our first audit, first of 3 audits scheduled for 2024, and it covered the period of September 2023 through February 2024, and it included 5 sites, no systems, and 16 tasks. So the objective of the audit was to determine the city's ongoing compliance with PCI policies and procedures, and the scope is based upon the PCI DSS in-scope requirements as they're defined by our external quality security assessor. The audit process included conducting site visits, and although there were no system assessments performed this time, our process would include the system assessments and then verifying the calendar events. So what do we look for when we go out to visit the site locations? For this past go-around, we looked at 6 sites during our review, and we reviewed that their policies and procedures were updated, and we performed a walkthrough of the site with the site of their credit card transaction process and the types of credit card payments that are received. Those could be in person or over the telephone or by mail. And then verified that employees are aware of their department's PCI policy and the location of their hard copy and electronic policy, comparing the serial numbers from the devices to the device listings, reviewing their tamper logs, and verifying that all employees who handle credit card information have completed the requisite PCI compliance training. So for systems, although we didn't review any systems this go around, we do review to make sure that they are collecting the attestations of compliance, otherwise known as AOCs, and that they review the contracts for PCI compliance language, and that they perform system reviews to make sure that the full 16-digit credit card number is not maintained within the system, and confirming that the password settings and the software updates agree to the system policy. So for calendar tasks, we reviewed the tasks scheduled for September 2023 through February 2024, and this included confirming that quarterly team meetings were held, that vulnerability scans were performed, that the PCI DSS tracking document is maintained, and this includes ensuring that we have up-to-date third-party service provider contracts and attestations of compliance, reviewing the device inventory and the staff PCI training list, and then lastly, ensuring or reviewing that the annual report on compliance prepared by the external quality security assessor is completed, submitted, and accepted by the city's bank. So during the audit, there were 6 sites reviewed, and there were no exceptions noted. There were no systems included within this review, and then there were 16 calendar tasks reviewed with 1 exception identified. There was 1 task included within the annual PCI compliance calendar that was not performed timely, and based upon our discussions with city staff, this was a result of the city's contract with the external quality security assessor expiring and the responsibility for this task being transitioned to the city's information technology department. The Information Technology Department has assumed and is now performing this calendar task on a quarterly basis. This concludes my presentation. I would like to thank the City Treasurer's Office and City Department staff for their assistance throughout the audit. The Assistant Treasurer, Guillaume Murray, and I are here to answer any questions that you might have.
I have a couple questions. So when they determined our level, that was 6 years ago. So is that done only once every 6 years?
No, it's done on an annual basis, but we were assessed at a level 2 for every year since
Okay.
since
So this is the
2018.
first year. And I guess kind of related is, why would we have seen the volume drop? Are we just taking in less monies? Or are there other methods of payment that we're just not seeing?
Theo, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, but that was as of last year, though.
I think that the levels, they had decreased already, but because of COVID, they delayed resetting the totals. But I'm sure Gia can give a more detailed answer.
Good afternoon, members of Audit Committee. The activity level, the volume level is the prior year. So for this year, it will be for 2023. For 2023, it would have been for 2022. So it not necessarily drops. Some of the activities are actually outsourced. So this year, Visa, or the bank, our merchant services and our acquiring bank indicated that Visa changed their methodology, and they indicated that the volume level is now only what passes through our merchant services and not necessarily third-party service provider.
Got it. So it could be the same dollars, just less volume.
Volume, yes, correct.
Got it.
Well, the volume is, for example, it's the number of transactions.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But let's just say, just making up a number, it's $1 million and it was 1.2 million transactions. It could still be $1 million this year and 800,000 transactions.
Correct. That is correct. That is correct.
And it's just a methodology change for Visa that caused the drop in transaction volume.
Well, the cause and drop is basically our volumes. Some volumes were outsourced to a third party rather than merchant accounts that are created and issued by our own bank. So the third party has their own merchant services, their own bank, yeah.
Got it. So
Yeah.
instead of me coming into a city office and paying with my credit card, I'm paying someone else
On behalf of the city.
on behalf of the city.
Correct.
And it's not getting counted, but it's still getting counted as revenue.
Correct. That is correct.
Got it. Okay.
That is correct.
So who made the decision to outsource some of the merchant
Departments.
services? I'm
The
sorry?
The departments.
And did it create some sort of beneficial arbitrage for the city to do so?
Well, the departments will make that decision based on their operations. So if they're not able to, for example, do the receipting, do the collections, they will have another third party do it for them. So, but they still have to go through the city and ask permission to make sure whether or not they can, it can be the city who's going to be the merchant on record or the third party.
Understood. I think maybe if I clarify my question, does it have a beneficial impact for the city to now process and outsource versus having the merchant do it themselves? And is it beneficial for the city? Have we ran any sorts of numbers to see? I understand, so far from what I understand, it kind of takes the edge off, right? A little bit because we're outsourcing that. I don't know if Visa or any of the other 5 syndicate members offer these services. I'm just trying to wrap my head around why we're not running it so that we could be at level 1 or level 2 and to determine, what the cost benefit analysis is.
Well, with regards to PCI compliance, we're still on the hook, whether we outsource or whether we do it in-house as the merchant on record. we're still on the hook because these are our customers. So they are still in scope, whether they are a third-party service provider, they are in scope by way of an attestation of compliance. So we would have to obtain an attestation of compliance from the third-party service provider to make sure that they are compliant as well. So as far as benefit, I suppose it depends on what you mean by benefit.
I'm not really speaking about the compliance aspect, because I know it is governed by, what's it,
The Visa,
yeah,
the
QSA,
card organization.
right? I'm specifically asking dollars and cents wise and manpower wise. Was this decision made not from compliance aspect?
Oh,
I know
I
we're
see.
following compliance and have attestations per, checkpoint, but what I'm asking is, does it affect us in any way negatively by not being level 2 or dropping to level 3 as a result of outsourcing some of these?
Actually, the higher the merchant level, the better we are. So the risk is higher if we're lower. So we were level 2. If we were level 1, we would be riskier. We would be a riskier merchant. So we dropped to a level 3, which is a good thing because less risk.
But are you asking, I think what I'm hearing you ask, and I could be wrong, is when a department goes from taking a normal credit card transaction versus going through a third party, does that cost the city more money? Is that what you're asking? Because
Yeah, I just wanted to know, partially, yeah, you're right, you're right on the trail.
Because I feel like there's two separate things. There's this level thing, which determines PCI compliance, which is a cost. And then there's this other thing, which is the business thing.
Well,
And
that-
like the business thing might cost us more money if we're going through a third party versus going through our own. I think that's what you're asking.
Well, yeah, partially, because from what I hear, ROC is not required for anything besides level 1 merchants, right? But it is still proper industry practice to do it in level 2 and level 3 merchants as well. I'm just curious as to how this decision was made, and you've almost answered my question. Level 3, was it done deliberately so that we would become a level 3 merchant? Was it done for what purpose, really? That's what I'm trying to decide.
No, it wasn't done
Because
deliberately.
compliance is the same, attestations are the same. I'm just trying to determine.
Yeah, I don't think you guys have control on
The
transaction
volume.
activities. All depends on activity out there.
It actually dropped when parking went out and got a third-party vendor, it went down. However, at that time, Visa did not consider that to be a factor in reducing our volume. It was only recently that they changed their methodology of counting the volumes, and they're only counting what passes through
there.
the city's merchant, the merchant services, rather than counting the third party. So,
I understand.
right.
And
So
it is
parking
fluid.
is still separate right now. That's why we're still very low. We're less than 1 million.
Lots of changes going on in the global marketplace.
Correct. It's been a long time since we've tried to get the bank and the card organization to respond to our question, why is it that we're still level 2 when our volume that passes through Bank of America is
Still the same.
still this, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question in regards to the report, Natalie. You identified 6 sites that were audited. Is there any way you can identify the 6 sites?
Thank you.
Oh, then tell her to leave.
Yes.
And while you're looking up that answer, the other question I had is, who is the merchant that we're using? Or do we have multiple merchants that we use for this PCI compliance? Who's the merchant that we're using?
Our merchant processor and our acquiring bank is Bank of America, and they work with Fiserv as our merchant processor.
I see, okay. And we've had them for many years now?
Yes, that's correct.
So, okay, so no one has done, this is just an offside question, obviously, but an analysis as to shopping around merchants?
We do.
Bidding? Yeah,
We
you do?
we still do from time to time, and if there's just a few handful out there that are big and does, you know, multi-services,
Yeah.
and Bank of America is one of them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I just have one quick question.
It's okay, I'll stay here.
I mean, I was going to ask you while you were here about the parking, and so let's say I'm using Visa to pay for my parking. I mean, I think all of us know that there's a 3% transaction cost. So when you're using an intermediary, sort of speak, that cost to the city, or the cost would be even more than 3%. So you're charging $1, but you're getting 95 cents on the dollar, something like that. Is that correct?
Well, there is the merchant charges, and that merchant fees, it's gonna be a little bit tricky here. It's a blended rate. There's discount fees, and then there's the interchange fees. And the interchange fees are fees that are charged by issuing card banks as well as the card organization, versus the discount fees are charged by the merchant bank.
Oh,
Okay? The interchange fees doesn't change. You can go to any merchant processor, you will get the same rate that Visa, MasterCard, and American Express provides. The only thing that would change would be the discount fees. Correct. So it's a blended rate. So when there's a third-party vendor or there's a department that want or need to go outsource this, they consult the treasurer's office, our office. So we kind of give them, the balancing speech and, what's required, and, so they have to do their analysis as well.
I see. And I asked the question because if memory serves, I think Mr. Salim was once talking about this. We had close to 2 million transactions, 1.9, that's something.
At one time, yes.
Yes, and now it's down, it's below 1 million transactions.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And parking was one of the biggest volumes there and they're outsourcing some. We still have the parking garage, but the parking
Right.
meters are outsourced.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Gia.
So did you find the answer?
I did.
Okay.
So I don't have it here, but if my memory serves me correctly, we did look at 6 sites, and it included 3 departments. It was our finance department, our libraries, and our police department.
Okay, that makes sense.
I had a question, Natalie. So now that we've dropped to level 3, how does that change your audit process? And are you still going to do an ROC?
That is a decision that will be made by management for this year, because I know that for this year, because we weren't aware that we were going to be dropped to a level 3, that they are in the process of hiring or doing a request. Actually, I'm not sure where they are in the process, but they are hiring another QSA to perform the annual report on compliance for this year.
Okay, so Treasury hires that person?
That's a combined effort by IT and Treasury, yes, and the PCI group is also involved.
So for this year, same?
Nothing will change. Nothing, the audit will still continue, the ROC will still continue, all the PCI requirement activities will continue, even if we drop to a level 4. we still need to be
you're still
vigilant, yes,
Got it.
because we're protecting cardholder data.
Right.
Because one incident can cost city a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Sure.
Just one last thing. So the interchange rate, that is, I assume, set by the syndicate as well?
Yes, it's, some of that is fixed, some of that is percentage-based. But again, that is set by the card organization, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, as
Government.
well as the issuing card bank.
Okay.
Your card bank, if you have a card, it's your issuing card bank.
Understood. And the discount rate, right, would that have to do with any of the levels? So more volume equals discount. I understand it's higher risk, but wouldn't that provide us with more leverage in a time where we really don't have much leverage? I mean,
It could, but I
but,
don't know the answer
yeah.
to that, but that's a good question. And that's something I can ask, whether or not if decreasing our risk will mean better rate. I believe it would, but again, that's something I will ask.
No, I
I
mean,
do know-
volume, like level one volume would have a higher discount rate. And again, I'm a,
No, it would be the opposite, that if you are level one, you're more riskier, therefore your fees might be greater. Because you're a risk. You're riskier. Yeah. So,
I'm just speaking specific to the interchange rate of the, and the discount rate, not at the compliance level, not.
correct,
So,
correct,
okay,
correct. They call it a discount rate, it's really just our merchant rate, but that's just an industry term. So the discount rate would be the cost of your terminal for rental or for purchasing your service, the services that you use with your merchant services. Whereas the interchange would be
the extra margin,
the
merchant.
card itself when you're using, like, for example, if there's a bank that offers the cardholder more rewards, that might mean more cost to the merchant.
Understood, thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, thank you. So we're done with this section. Next item.
Actually, there's one more audit report to walk through, and that's the Records Management System FileNet audit.
Oh, that
Let
one.
me bring up those slides. And this audit was actually completed by Ani Antonasian, but in her absence, I will walk you through the PowerPoint presentation. So just to provide you with a little bit of background, FileNet is an enterprise document management system that was acquired by the city and first implemented in 2003. FileNet is used by the organization to electronically store, manage, track, and create automated records. And FileNet is managed by the city's Information Technology Department, otherwise known as ITD, and the staff are responsible for such things as access provisioning, document type template creation, document search template creation, and then the general system maintenance such as system updates. So since the inception, 13 out of the 14 city departments have used FileNet to store records. So starting from the top of this pie chart, you can see that there are 5 departments, or 36% of departments, that actively use the FileNet system. And then there are an additional 5, or 36%, that have FileNet records, or have records included within FileNet, but are inactive users. And then we have 1 department, or 7%, that has never used FileNet for its records management. And then the last is the 3, or 21%, that have shown reduced usage of the FileNet system compared to the past 2 years. So as of February 2024, FileNet contained approximately 5.3 million records, and the records are categorized into 15 distinct categories known as object codes, object stores. So those are these codes down here at the bottom. And so these object stores, they correspond to either city departments or divisions. So this chart shows that the spread of the over 5 million records, and as you can see, community development, finance, and our Glendale Police Department are the 3 departments with the most FileNet records to date. So in 2022, the City Council adopted a resolution to establish a citywide records retention schedule and a policy authorizing destruction of certain city records. The CRRS, for short, provides a period of time that the document is to be retained by a city department. So currently, each department is responsible for assigning the records retention schedule for the FileNet records, and it should be noted that most records contained within the FileNet system precede the adoption of the CRRS, and as a result, may not comply with the schedule. So let me tell you a little bit about the document upload procedures. So the over 5 million FileNet records are broadly categorized into 205 document types by department. For instance, the refund or ordinance or minutes, et cetera. And these document type templates are created by ITD at the request of each department. So an important tool to note is called Kofax, which is a system tool that's used to integrate PDF documents into FileNet. Several of our city departments are currently using Kofax to export scanned documents into FileNet. And the advantages of using Kofax are that it allows for the document's index fields to be auto-populated within FileNet. So in order for FileNet access provisioning, in order to grant staff access to FileNet, city departments will email a request to the city's ITD help desk. And in the body of the email, the requester is asked to specify the level of access required. And many times, the requesters will provide the name of an individual whose access level they wish to mirror. And then ITD will configure the access permissions accordingly. So at a high level, FileNet provisions access is based on group membership, and the user is authenticated before FileNet access is granted. And as far as permissions go, the document permissions are typically set at the document class level. So the objective of this audit was to determine whether controls are in place to ensure that FileNet system is providing the functions needed by the users and to ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the system and its associated data. The scope of this audit covers all of the FileNet records as of February 2024 and the broad areas of document retention. So to accomplish our objective, the audit process included interviewing city staff that manage the FileNet system, interviewing all city departments regarding their FileNet usage, and facilitating a process of retrieving verified retention periods for the records in accordance with the CRRS, performing detailed analysis of system records to obtain descriptive statistics, performing detailed data quality review on the system records, and also conducting detailed review of FileNet's available user access listing. So based on our audit, we identified 6 improvement opportunities that I've categorized into the following 5 general categories: policies and procedures, records retention, FileNet's role, access controls, and then a miscellaneous category that captures data entry controls and user training. So I'll begin with audit result category 1, which includes audit observation number 1, and is related to the FileNet policies and procedures. So as neither ITD nor the city departments currently have any policies or procedures related to managing the FileNet system or the FileNet records, it was recommended that ITD document policies or procedures for the management of the FileNet system, including the FileNet user access provisioning, and also that the city clerk's office, in coordination with management services, direct departments to establish departmental records management policies and procedures. Second, we noted that 9 out of 13 departments don't have a designated person to manage their FileNet records, and the recommendation was that the city clerk's office direct departments to designate a point person. The third was that the existing administrative policy manual records retention section has not been updated since 1997, and it doesn't reference the city-wide records retention schedule. So the recommendation was that the city clerk update the city's APM records retention policy section to reference the CRRS. So fourth, during our citywide interviews with each of the city departments, we noted that not all the city departments were aware of the CRRS, and they didn't know how to comply with it. So the recommendation was that the city clerk's office is already proactively working on is to complete the records retention policies and procedures that will provide the departments with direction on how to use the CRRS. Audit results category 2 includes observation number 2 and is related to compliance with records retention periods. So based on our review of over 5 million FileNet records, we noted that departments have not been monitoring their records to ensure that they have accurate retention periods assigned in compliance with the recently adopted CRRS, and that they are retained and purged in accordance with that document, with that schedule. So based on these findings, it was recommended that ITD work with the departments to ensure that all records have verified CRRS periods assigned. To aid in this process, during this audit, internal audit actually facilitated a citywide departmental outreach for ITD and gathered the retention period reference sheets from most of the departments and shared the results with ITD, who will complete them. Second, detailed test results, test work identified that 58% of the documents reviewed had a unverified retention period assignment, and 40% of the records did not have a retention period assigned. So it was recommended that the policies and procedures be established to ensure that going forward, all document types in FileNet have a mandatory retention period assigned. Third, there is also a retention period type that we have termed attribute-based within this audit, which refers to retention periods that are dependent on a specific attribute. For example, a record may be purged X years after an employee's termination date. So this attribute is difficult to input into FileNet as the records are uploaded, as the employee's termination date has not yet been determined. So for the attribute-based retention periods, it was recommended that the document entry templates be populated with the required attributes, and if they cannot be populated at the time of upload, then the compensating controls be established by the departments. So what that means is, in this example, we said that if the attribute-based retention period is X years after an employee's termination, we want to make sure that there is a field within the template for them to input the employee's termination date so that it could be used to ensure that they are purged timely. Audit result category 3 includes observation number 3 and is related to FileNet's role in the city's records management strategy. And per our discussions with ITD management, FileNet is the city's main record management system. However, as I had shown you previously in the graph, out of the city's 14 departments, only 5 are actively using FileNet, 5 are not active users, and 3 have reduced usage, and 1 has never used FileNet for records management. So it's recommended that management services in coordination with ITD evaluate and document the role of FileNet in the city's records management strategy, and then based on the evaluation, determine whether all city departments should be using the FileNet to store records and communicate this directive to all of the departments. To aid in this effort, we recommended that they consider utilizing the CRRS, which is that records retention schedule that lists all the documents that were identified that should be maintained, and to determine which systems each of those documents are maintained within. Each department to store their documents. So basically, even though we took a look at the CRRS, not all of those documents are necessarily located within FileNet. They could be located in other systems such as SharePoint or in other document, like for example, Munis has its own records management system. So second, per ITD, an assessment has not been performed to ensure that FileNet is currently the best product for the city's records management needs. So it was our recommendation that ITD perform a market assessment to identify if FileNet is currently the best records management system for the city. Audit result category 4 includes observation number 5 and is related to user access controls. During our test work, there were 4 inactive test groups identified, and so the recommendation was that ITD remove these test group users. Second, the right to delete permission level and the business need are not documented or properly segregated. So it was recommended that ITD review the existing right to delete permission levels and document the business need and then properly segregate those responsibilities. Third, 14 out of 15 object stores were identified as not having an audit log enabled. As a result, record deletions are not monitored. Our recommendation was that audit logs be established for all object stores and that they be periodically monitored for deleted records. And then fourth, the recovery of deleted records is currently limited to 14 days. It was recommended, for 14 days. So it was recommended that ITD assess record recovery methods and timeframes based on risk. So audit category 5 includes observations number 4 and 6, and it was related to FileNet data entry controls and the user training. So based on the citywide departmental interviews conducted by internal audit and a data reliability review of the FileNet records, we noted that the document title field, which is used to identify a record by its title, had 9,379 blank values, and 11,908 records have been uploaded to FileNet under no specific document type and by default have been categorized under the generic document type field. Let me step back a second. I should have mentioned, when I said that there's 9,379 with blank values, that equates to 0.18% of the population. And the 11,908 records is 0.2%, just to put them into perspective. So our recommendation was for ITD to ensure that the document title and the document type fields are mandatory and that users are blocked from manually uploading documents without the use of a document template. Second, the 8 departments that actively upload records to FileNet use different record upload methods, so it's unclear whether a single method should be the preferred option to reduce staff time. So it was recommended that ITD, that a review be performed of the existing document upload methods and uploads be streamlined to the most efficient method, and the most efficient upload method be assigned and the criteria used to determine that method be documented within each department's policies and procedures. Third, per ITD staff, an instance was noted where documents manually uploaded into FileNet by the city clerk's office did not have the optical character recognition or OCR feature enabled, which resulted in the records being uploaded as images without the ability to keyword search within FileNet. So it was recommended that ITD ensure that all city department scanners used to manually upload records to FileNet have the OCR feature enabled. Fourth, during departmental interviews, some departments expressed interest in user training on how to upload documents to FileNet and also how to perform successful searches for records. So it was recommended that ITD perform or provide periodic training on best practices for uploading documents into FileNet and best practices on how to perform successful searches for records. This concludes my presentation. I would like to take this time to thank information technology staff for their assistance throughout this audit. Hagop Havsepian, Assistant Chief Information Officer Applications, and Tao Lee, Departmental Apps Manager, and myself and I are here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. What a great report that is, but also a lot of information. And a lot of questions are being answered, being thought about in regards to the system that sounds like not that many people are using it. So who isn't using it? I want to know also what is the cost of this system? And is there remote access to the system as well? Those are my 3 questions.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Parahong and committee members.
To your first question, so we, as you know, FileNet was implemented about 2003. So back then, there was really, the paradigm was to have a very centralized document management system. But over the times, as technology evolved, more and more enterprise systems are coming with their own proprietary native DMS, document management stores. So then you can see a decrease of some of the department's participation because they're more heavily involved in the other enterprise systems. And then the cost, I believe the second question was regarding the cost. The cost that we pay for FileNet, it's around 180,000 annually. That pays for maintenance, for technical support, getting us the latest and greatest patches for the system.
And do they have remote access for the system?
So the FileNet system is a web-based system. It works in the browser. So with exiting out of pandemic now, a lot of technology is enabling us to access it remotely through a virtual private network. So it's a secured environment. It's, for all intents and purposes, is still within the city's environment.
So
But there
currently,
is,
5 out of 14 departments are using it.
I believe 5 out of 14 are heavily using it,
Yeah,
and
heavily using
other
it.
departments have historical records in there, which they are still retrieving, but they're not as inputting as much as before.
And it surprises me that I saw in here where GPD is using it, but the fire department isn't. And so what is the fire department currently using to store all their reports, et cetera, that, you know, I mean, there
Right.
has to be another system they're using that maybe
Yeah.
we're paying for, or what's?
Right, that kind of ties into the paradigm shift I kind of noted earlier. So they have Paraton, which is their CAD system. Within that, there is a record management system for CAD. But police has elected, and they have always been heavily using our FileNet system, which was this audit, and there's continue to heavily use it.
Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, so just trying to understand what FileNet is. Is that like just like a shared document repository? And you even said that VPN, you need VPN to access it. So that's very different than like a Box or a Google Drive or things of that nature, right? And are these other departments utilizing those repository tools?
Sure, committee member Balang. So FileNet is a enterprise level, full-featured document management system. I want to stress that it doesn't necessarily require VPN. It's just one of the ways that it can be accessed. So if you're in the city operating day-to-day business, you can just directly access FileNet. And it just gives a lot of enterprise level features, such as document versioning. So you have draft, final production version. Those documents can be distinguished in FileNet. There's a check-in, check-out process. There's auditing that can be done, like who's checking in and who's checking all the documents, who's deleting the documents. So it has a lot more enterprise level features that we need, you know, aside from what Box or Google Drive can offer.
Got it. So there's a collaboration function as well. So 2 or 3 of us pull the same drive, we can update it and it will save all those changes?
Absolutely. So there's a checkout process, so then you will know who's checked out of that document. So
Right, so one person at a time can
So
work
one
on it.
person at a time to, but you could start your own versions of it, so you're kind of branching. But of course, you have to work with other person to reconcile it.
And then related to the report, there were a lot of like areas of improvement around how you label a document, a name, dates based on some policy that's been created. So it allows for all those type of inputs after you've stored. So I'm trying to understand how this works. So I'm working on a Word document.
Right.
I save it into FileNet as abc.doc. Then I have to go in there and fill out bits and pieces of information so that it could be leveraged for the report?
Correct. So one of the features is it allows you to add additional attributes or labels onto the document for later research and for easy retrieval. And some of the attributes that were noted in the report were kind of tied into the newly established city records retention schedule. So of course, the technology has the flexibility to allow for those configuration to take place. And that's something actually we're actively working on.
Okay, and last question. So if I want to email a file to Jack, can I just email the link, or do I have to pull the whole drive down, pull the whole file to email it?
So assuming Jack has, committee member Mavin
Yeah.
has the right level of access, you could share it through a link, or you could download and pull the document out. So there's different
Thank you.
options for it.
Thank you. Just a question that I have is, we noticed that a couple of departments have reduced the utilization or not using. I think you mentioned that they have their own DMS system, enterprise level. So, in your assessment, I mean, like, what is the cost benefit of utilizing the FileNet versus having departments manage this on their own? I mean, to me, the most attractive attribute of a system like that is the searchability of the documents. But if the documents are uploaded and the OCR feature is not on, or some departments don't, and or the proper naming protocols are not observed, I mean, I understand the police department probably is on top of it. They can easily retrieve their documents. But as an organization, what is the value of, maintaining something like the FileNet system? I mean, your assessment, just.
Right, committee member Hashidorian. So exactly as you noted, some of the benefits include retrieval, including the right classification of documents, including controlling who's going to be able to access it. I mean, there are certain things that we're actually looking into. I think a lot of it has to do with outreach as well. Certain departments are kind of falling behind in terms of their utilization. We believe there's great value. So there's two parts to that. One is our next fiscal year, we're budgeting to do a full-on assessment to make sure, FileNet system is still one of the top in the market to provide this functionality. So if it is, then we will definitely also incorporate that into our outreach, which we're planning to do as well, to just educate and bring more people back onto FileNet. So definitely it is providing value to our city. It's just, I think it's a matter of a combination of determining that if it's still the top market player, and also just to do outreach and train people on using it.
I mean, I understand the part that you want to ascertain that FileNet is still the top of the line product. It's just I guess my question is that if in speaking to different heads of departments, especially the ones who have maybe reduced the utilization, or they're not interested, or they have their own system of managing data, would you still consider that to be a value add to the city of Glendale as an organization, or?
Absolutely.
Because I'm sorry, because
Right.
if the conversation is that, oh, this is the top of the line product, well, it might be, but the departments are not necessarily interested. I guess then we have to sort of compel them to utilize this system while they already have a system in place that does it for them. Like, my question to me is that what is the value add for those other departments?
So this system definitely brings a lot of value for police and for CDD, which are heavily still active users. They are, for PD, they're storing all their records, criminal record management into FileNet. So regardless, this is bringing value to certain focused departments, and I do appreciate that you're noting certain departments are sort of not as engaged. I think once we do the assessment to determine, make sure that we're investing in the right product, it's really just to bring them up to speed and have them use those systems. And also we can look at, even though there's a paradigm shift of having some other native systems in their enterprise systems, there's often a lot of value to standardize on the ways we search for documents. So we are actually we're looking into different integration or different ways for the system to communicate, and for certain documents to be moved into FileNet as the final or equivalent DMS, document management system, as the final resting place for those documents.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I would imagine, it makes sense for the police department, the Parks and Rec department, and what was the third most uses? Finance. Right, to keep this record. And would it be possible that this system makes sense for these departments a bit more than, let's say, a OneDrive and a PDF with the same OCR and searchable attribute, not editable, to share it through OneDrive or SharePoint? Would it be so that it's more, it just makes more sense for the police department and rather than the Glendale Fire Department, which has HIPAA laws or could not store or could use or must use another encrypted software specifically for that department? Could it be that's why they're not compelled to use?
For fire, it's more of a matter of an extra step, right? So they have a native system, which is HIPAA compliant, which has the satisfies the requirements. FileNet can absolutely do those things, but we have to just look at, like I mentioned, the communication between the systems. So we don't want staff to be burdened with doing extra step to move the file also to FileNet. So if they have a system that works, that comes with their specific computer-aided dispatch for their emergency software, we will want them to leverage that. But there's, for FileNet, in terms of the feature set, it absolutely can do a lot of the DOJ compliance. In fact, it's doing it for PD.
Okay.
So we see it's a very general purpose, filing storage solution for documents. It's more of a, doubling the effort to move it into yet another system when they already had it. Again, that's the.
No, I understand, I understand. So it's a manpower issue then?
Right, correct.
Okay, and time consumption issue. Okay,
But-
so would FileNet then be better compelled to offer that service? Or wouldn't that be the person to compel? Or the company to compel rather than the individual department into forcing them?
Right, that's a good point. I think that's something their development
I think
team
that's where
should
the
look
leverage
into.
lies.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a matter of the big system, do they want to play ball with each other? But there are certain toolkits that we can leverage as well in-house. So we did leverage one of the interfaces, so then we're actually moving records automatically from our permitting system into FileNet. And that's why you see community development is one of the biggest users of FileNet.
Yeah, it's just money,
Yep.
the money. It's all the money departments, yeah.
So what's the cost for the fire department system? Do you have that?
Chair Padron, that's a good question. I don't want to divulge too much on the cost because we negotiate a lot of those costs, but I would say it's north of the FileNet cost.
Just,
Annual
and the
cost.
reason I ask is just because we're paying already for a system that we should be utilized, throughout all the departments, and it's not. I know and understand it's a, training issue. Obviously, sometimes, I know it too, where I use the system and I just don't like it, and I'll use my own, So, so if it comes to costs, I mean, somehow, whatever department that's in charge of all this needs to somehow train and do what is needed so that it could save tax dollars, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. We're spending money extra that we shouldn't be spending when, but obviously, fire department, we need to make sure they're still running and all that stuff. It's just a matter of, like I know how it is in the city where it takes a long time to transition to any new system, right? So not sure if there's a timeline for something down the road or.
So it's a great question, Chair Padron. There is some concerns though. Some of these vendors, as Mr. Lee alluded to, they don't want to integrate. So as much as FileNet is fully capable and we could purchase these toolkits, and let's say we had a blank check where we could bring in the resources to do all the work, some of these vendors have proprietary software and they don't want that data to be shared because they want us to be dependent on their system. What we've done is, as we started, especially now more than ever, trying to cut down costs, as we evaluate new solutions for the city, we try to make it a requirement that they will integrate with our centralized enterprise systems. So if we were to replace, let's say, Fire's system in the future, which, we reevaluate every 5 to so many years, we will make that a requirement of the next vendor to do that, because we don't want to be beholden to them controlling our data. So the goal is, all of these systems will find the final resting place for all that records into our centralized system. The good news about that is, as we change these vendors out, we own that data. That city data belongs to us and it stays with us. So the goal is that, and we're going to get there. It's just a matter of time and resources, but the vision is there.
And do cities communicate, for example, City of Glendale with, let's say, Pasadena or Burbank, where you see what they use and try to get a feel for, like their fire department, what system they're using, or they're all integrated to the same format, so that way we kind of lead certain direction or costs?
Chair Padron, that's very interesting. I was in a meeting this morning with the city of Pasadena, Burbank and West Hollywood, and we were discussing that exact topic amongst other topics to see what they're doing, what we're doing, and how we can leverage costs and resources. Kind of lessons learned also from
Great.
possible things we've done.
That's good to hear.
I have a couple of quick questions. One, I guess, is hypothetical. Imagine, like, at some point, we decide to move away from this solution and look at some other options. What happens to our data? Like, will they provide a way for us to migrate all of the data from that platform, the FileNet, to something else, or that's a subject of a different negotiation? So that's question number one. And I'm also assuming this second question deals with, like, I think in the report we saw a little bit about the deletion if somebody deletes a document. And I started thinking about it. If I delete a document, and I'm assuming there's digital footprint all over, like it shows who uploaded what, even if you don't have that template, but it maintains which account uploaded which data, which account deleted which data. Let's say, again, if I delete a document, will that send a message to that person's supervisor, somebody else? Is there a two-step process? Because I understand sometimes you have a document, that's an old document, you have revised it, you want to replace it with the new document. But in all other cases, is there a way to use this system in a way that enhances the security level a little bit more, other than the 14 days that was mentioned during the presentation?
Mr. Lee, do you want to address those, or?
Committee member Kashidoyan. So the FileNet system has the ability to be configured to do email notifications through workflows. We are already taking great care in terms of who can delete those documents. And of course, through the enhancements we're planning to do for FileNet, we can look at certain documents if it truly warrants additional email notification to the supervisors. That's something we can definitely implement. And also, as you noted, there is audit log, so whoever is doing what will be kept in the system through the transaction trails. So those are some of the things that we can address for that concern.
And then the earlier question regarding the migration of data, that's something that would be relatively easily handled, or?
Right, absolutely. So typically when we are doing a new system implementation, we would put into the contract and negotiation a block of hours to migrate the data from the existing system. So yes, we plan to keep this, whatever records, according to the record retention schedule, we will abide by that and make sure the new system can accommodate if we decide to go with a different system.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Quick questions. So I'm glad you met with the city of West Hollywood, Pasadena, and Burbank. What is the overall consensus on FileNet? Is that the superior system right now?
There's, like most enterprise systems, there's usually the top three. I would say FileNet is in the top three.
Okay.
But every city has their own unique business needs, so it's always good to reevaluate the market. I would say FileNet is definitely one of the industry leaders, so I don't think we're using the wrong system, but it's always good to test the market and see, for what we are doing in business today, is this still the best solution, or is there something else out there that might serve the city better today?
I'm curious, do the other cities use FileNet?
One of them uses FileNet, the other one does not. And the West Hollywood, I don't recall exactly what they use offhand. I think they're using one of the competitors.
I feel as though a band of 5 cities may have more pull when perhaps bringing in one of the chosen vendors or enterprise solution vendors, right? And perhaps that might not be FileNet. Perhaps that might be one of the other 2 out of the 3 that we migrate to, and collectively are able to provide training solutions from the company itself that we choose.
Committee member Mavian, it definitely is something that we have considered. We've actually leveraged other cities to negotiate better pricing. We haven't done like a joint agreement with one of these enterprise systems yet. I think that has may lead to some more costs and things that may not quite be beneficial, but we definitely will evaluate that for future purposes. But I think to serve the business needs, to be able to leverage. We do that with multiple enterprise systems now, where we say, you know, we are all getting together, and you are our vendor, and we as a group of cities want, you know, Tri-Cities or whatnot, want this particular action or this particular change or this particular service, and they will give it to all of us because we are all asking for it. So we do leverage that.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I meant, if these 5 cities or 6 or 7, or the more the merrier, right? And it would be some sort of collective bargaining, right? So, and thus provide.
Yes, it does, and
Or leverage.
Committee Member Maven strengthen numbers, so we take advantage of that when we can. It's a very good point.
And then the other vendors that we have currently, I understand that the beneficial portion of that is that the data is ours. We will retain that data. They will not have it. What are the time? Do you know the vendors of the various departments that aren't using it, and when they expire? Those, could you get that?
We have a record of most of them. We're actually putting together an application inventory list of all the applications across the city. We're consolidating all of that data and analyzing it, so we're in the process of doing that. I would say we have a good idea, but we are still in the process of completing that list.
And then one last thing, I don't know if you guys, I'm pretty sure, this is a question for Natalie, but it is tied into the FileNet and the Kofax systems. The city clerk's office you mentioned, per department, I just wanted to know about that process. Is it going to be a super records coordinator, just one person who's going to assign or appoint? Is it going to be a member of that specific department? Is it going to be the city clerk's office? Is it going to be members of council? Who's going to choose those?
So are you speaking about the point person within each of the departments to manage FileNet? So currently, the city clerk's office, they do have a liaison within each department that's responsible for records management. It's just not necessarily inclusive of FileNet at this point. So that was why our recommendation was that that the city clerk's office, in coordination with management services, work with the departments to appoint one to make sure that not only hard copy records are being reviewed and purged, but also the electronic copies.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Great. Next item.
Item
Oh.
So I'm going to continue on with the internal audit activity report. I apologize, it's long, but we've gone through section 1 of these 7, so if you don't mind, I will continue.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the second section is the projects in progress, and as of the end of the quarter, internal audit had 1 project in process, and that is the PCI compliance, the second one of the 3 to be performed this year. And that audit is near completion and anticipated to be issued shortly, and then presented to you at the September 30th audit committee for the September 30th, 2024. The third section is the continuous auditing section, and internal audit completed 1 continuous audit, which was the UAC-AD-EE continuous audit with the objective of determining whether Active Directory user access is limited to active employees, and whether access is revoked timely when an employee separates at a specific point in time. So for this particular audit, the test covered comparing Active Directory users to our active employees as of June 5th, 2024. We communicated the test results to the Information Technology Department Management, and all the corrections were made as of June 27th, 2024. The fourth section is the outstanding audit items, and as of June 30th, 2024, we had internal audit conducted follow-up on 16 projects, which included 15 outstanding audit observations, and out of those 50 outstanding audit observations, 12 were implemented, and 38 remain outstanding as of the end of the quarter. Section 5 is outstanding priority 1 audit items. For the quarter ending June 30th, there was one outstanding audit item with a priority 1 risk rating, and that was for our business registration certificate audit. And the recommendation was to review and appropriately resolve over 4,000 expired BRCs identified by internal audit. So basically, these were expired, but they had current statuses such as pending and weren't nullified as is required by the GMC. So the current status is the Community Development Department has been working to resolve all of these expired BRCs, and they've completed 3,487 as far as reviewing and resolving. They've gotten through March 2023, and they're working on the remaining BRCs that were identified to take us through August 2023, and anticipate they'll be completed by September 30th, 2024. Section 6 is outstanding audit items meeting audit committee discussion criteria, and as you know, based on resolution number 2 passed by the audit committee, there are 3 scenarios where the department is asked to come and answer any questions or provide statuses on any outstanding items, and that's in the case that if a determination is made that an audit recommendation is not going to be implemented, or if the audit recommendation hasn't been implemented within 2 years of the report date, or if the audit recommendation hasn't been implemented within 3 years of the report date. So for this April through June 30th, 2024, we had one item that entered one of these 3 categories, and that was the category of not being implemented within 2 years of the report date, and that was for the Glendale Parking Facilities Agreement audit. The recommendation was that Public Works work with Glendale Community College to ensure that adequate supporting documentation is retained, including the sales reports and the tablet sales and refund request forms. So as of now, GCC, since the pandemic, has not been charging its students parking permit fees. So as a result, there are no tablet sales reports or refund reports available for our Public Works Department to review. So GCC is currently exploring lowering the student parking permit rates prior to resuming the student parking fees, and it's anticipated that they will reinstate the parking permits in fall of 2024, and then those required financial statement or financial reports will be submitted to the city in February of 2025. Section 7 is advisory services, and as you know, internal audit participates on a variety of teams, and for this past quarter, we participated in 3, the City Treasurer's Office Investment Policy Advisory Committee, the PCI Compliance Team, and then Glendale Water and Power's Energy Risk Management Committee. This completes my presentation for the Internal Audit Activity Report as of June 30th, 2024. I'll open it up for any questions.
Any committee members, questions?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions at all. So let's move on.
Item number 6C, fiscal year 2024 audit work plan review and proposed fiscal year 2025 audit work plan. Natalie Minami Valdivia, Principal Internal Auditor.
Thank you. So now I will present to you the fiscal year 2024 work plan review and the fiscal year 2025 proposed work plan. The annual report has the annual report that is included within your packet. It has 2 purposes. It was to provide you with an update on internal audit activity and performance for the fiscal year ended 2024, and also to provide you with an overview of the fiscal year 2025 work plan process and proposed work plan. The report includes an executive summary and 2 exhibits, the fiscal year 2024 work plan status update, and the fiscal year 2025 proposed work plan. In today's presentation, I will answer the following questions. What is a work plan? How is the work plan developed? How did internal audit do in fiscal year 2024? And what's planned for fiscal year 2025? So what is a work plan? A work plan is a list of projects to be conducted by internal audit, and it is required by the Glendale Municipal Code to be prepared annually based on an assessment of relative risk. As a work plan is risk-based, it is a dynamic plan versus a static plan, and may be adjusted throughout the year based on new information obtained. So I'd like to walk you through our risk-based work plan development process. This process includes 5 steps that are performed during the fiscal year. Step 1 is the starting point of the annual risk assessment process and begins after the annual work plan is filed with City Council. Step 2 is ongoing assignments. Throughout the year, we receive new risk-related information and our requests from our various stakeholders, and we assess the risks of these new items to determine whether they'll be included within our current year work plan or if they'll be added to our audit universe to be considered and evaluated for the next fiscal year. Step 3 is the periodic risk assessments and work plan updates that are performed on a quarterly basis. And this process includes creating dashboards to visualize data analytics, results performed on vendor contracts and purchase orders to identify those with high dollar amounts and low remaining balances or those that are due to expire in the next 2 to 3 years. The work plan quarterly status updates provide management with the projects that have been completed or are currently in progress, as well as those that are scheduled to start soon or are coming soon projects. Step 4, the annual risk assessment is performed and a list of potential projects is identified, and on a biannual basis, this process includes a department risk assessment questionnaire and incorporates the data analytics and also conducting departmental meetings. Step 5, the work plan is reviewed with and approved by the assistant city manager, and then audit committee, which is basically the step that we are at today, and prior to it being filed with the city council, and then bringing us back again to the starting point. So just to give you a little bit more detail on steps 4, 5, and 6, the annual risk assessment includes data analytics performed on the vendor data. Then, like I mentioned before, the purchase orders and the contracts with high dollar values that have low remaining balances or that are going to be expiring in 2 or 3 years that may be due for renewal or a new RFP. The biannual department risk assessment survey, the biannual department risk assessment meetings, and then the creation of the top ranked project list to be reviewed with the assistant city manager and city manager. So step 5, the annual review and approval consisted of meeting with the assistant city manager and the city manager to review and select the projects to be included within our fiscal year 2025 plan. And like I mentioned before, then we are at the current step of providing the annual work plan to the audit committee for your review and approval. So once the audit committee approves the annual work plan, it will be submitted to city council and again, back to the beginning of our cycle. So changes that were made this year, as I mentioned, normally in the past we've conducted the risk assessment surveys and the departmental meetings on an annual basis. Due to our staffing changes and our staffing levels at this point, we've changed the risk assessment surveys and meetings to become biannually, so we'll conduct them every other year. So here's a summary of internal audit's work plan performance. The detailed reconciliations included within the report as your Exhibit 1. The original work plan included 23 projects. We had one discontinued continuous audit project that resulted in an adjusted work plan of 22. We completed 16 as of June 30th, and we carried one, which is that PCI compliance audit, over to our fiscal year 2025 audit plan. So this is a list of internal audit's fiscal year 2025 performance highlights, and they are detailed in your report. Internal audit continued to audit areas that mattered the most based upon the risk-based work plan. We improved the periodic risk assessment process by refining the continuous risk assessment approach. We continue to produce high-quality work products by maintaining and updating our quality control systems, which includes our policies and procedures and our processes. We promoted collaboration and transparency through SharePoint Interactive internal audit recommendations and continuous audit test results, trackers and databases, dashboards. We maintained a learn and share culture within the department to enable staff members to share lessons learned during audits, as well as we schedule fraud brainstorms to allow staff members the opportunity to do a little bit of research and contribute project-related fraud risks to be considered during the audit. And We continue to be more agile and efficient in performing our audit projects by including and continuous audits in the dashboard reporting. So the current year's proposed work plan includes 19 projects. These projects include one project that was in progress at the end of fiscal year 2024, 7 projects that were selected from the fiscal year 2025 risk assessment process, and then 8 continuous audits and 3 ongoing advisory projects. In addition to the audit work plan projects, internal audit will continue to perform other activities, including the ongoing risk assessment process previously discussed, the maintenance of the audit quality control system that includes, like I mentioned, the policies and procedures designed to provide reasonable assurance that personnel comply with the professional standards and internal audit-related city policies, procedures, municipal codes, or resolutions. And then quarterly follow-up with the department staff on all the outstanding audit observations, quarterly and annual activity reports to the Audit Committee and City Council, and then Audit Committee staff support, including internal audits, staff members serving as the committee secretary. This concludes my presentation, and I will open it up for any questions you have.
First of all, I would love to give you a standing ovation for all the great work you guys have done. I mean, thank you for, it's awesome. But also, I want to say that, I mean, you mentioned staffing issues. You completed 70% of all your, the audits that you had planned for. So the staffing, is it that you, is there a, that you can find staff, or what's the cause of the staffing issues that we have?
So as you know, Jesse Zhang, our internal audit manager, retired in December, and currently we have 1 staff member out on a planned family leave. So currently we have 2, Ani Antonasian and myself, within the internal audit department, and we just actually received approval to add an internal audit position. So we're in the process of starting the process to recruit 1 additional staff member.
So you weren't able to replace that, the other additional one that you lost, right?
Correct.
That's too bad. No,
I
well,
agree.
mean, you guys doing a great job for what you have, and you know, I commend your staff efforts, and obviously you right now that running the show. So thank you a lot for all the work that you guys are doing now. So the changes you're making from annual to biannual, that's, you said also it's a reason for staffing, right? That's why you're making that change?
Correct, because basically, like you mentioned, we completed 70% of our audit plan, so a lot of the projects that were reselected for this year were projects that were not completed as of last year. And in order to do those departmental interviews and the departmental survey, it takes a lot of manpower, and it's usually a couple of us in each of those interviews.
Great, thank you. You have anything?
In the table, can you go back?
Sure.
Maybe 1 or 2 slides?
Oops, I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah, so it says that 1 was carried over.
Yes.
But in the document, it said 4 were carried over.
Oh.
4 have been reselected to be included in FY '25. Is there a different, like, what's the difference?
So that would be my error, I apologize. There were, originally, I had made the mistake of saying that the 3 PCI audits were carrying over, but they are not carrying over. They are 3 new audits, and they're recurring audits.
Okay, so it's just a classification.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else?
I did like the extra font for where we're currently at.
The bouncing.
I appreciated that. Yeah,
Great.
I noticed it.
Thank you.
Any more? Anyone else? All right, I think now we need to jump up to item 4.
Oh, that's right, to go back to
We need to-
approve the
we need to
minutes.
Approve your report, right? No, don't we need to approve yours, your plan?
Actually, you approved that report in 5C.
Okay. Perfect. So then, let's move to the approval of minutes, item 4.
Item 4, approval of minutes. 4A, minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on April 25, 2024.
So I need a motion,
Yeah, I move to approve.
and a second.
Second?
All right, so roll call.
Committee members Palin,
Yes.
Khashadurian,
I abstain.
Mavian,
Aye.
He wasn't here, that's why.
I approve.
Chair Parhon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, just threw me off guard.
No, he
Oh,
wasn't.
yeah,
no.
I was not here.
No, both of them. All right, great. Thank you. So he abstained. All right, next, line
Item number 7, Audit Committee staff comments.
All right, do we have any staff comments? All right, I want to first make a comment here. And we got a sad news to report that our fellow commissioner, Thomas Aguinesi, I can't pronounce his last name. Shaughnessy passed away, a member of 7 years of our committee here, and we'd like to honor him by maybe a moment of silence for him. Okay, thank you. Anyone want to say any special words from working with Mr. Shaughnessy?
I just want to add that he will be dearly missed. I remember he joined us in, I'm not exactly sure what year, but I remember that he joined the committee and then he left for maybe a couple of years, and then he came back, and again, we benefited from his participation and his comments, and he'll be dearly missed.
I know you guys didn't know too much.
Yeah, I share in those sentiments, though. I haven't spent too much time with him, relatively speaking, but coming up on a year. And he was a fine gentleman, very passionate about about community items, and he'll be dearly missed, and may his soul rest in peace.
I know he was very involved, I mean, not just in our committee, but also, I believe, with the city of Glendale. So I think everyone that knew him from the city will actually miss him, just for the time frame of the years of community involvement that he was in within our city council involvement, where he attended meetings there, and that's how I believe Paula Devine appointed him to join us. So thank you for your service, and rest in peace, sir. Any staff comments? Great. All right, so next, we'll go 8, line item 8, new business.
Item number 8, new business. We don't have any new business.
You got nothing? All right, great. Next line item.
Item number 9, adjournments. May I please have a motion and second?
All right, motion,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
good. I don't think we need a roll call for that, right?
You do actually, I think.
Do we? All right, I just need to do this, though, the gavel. There you go. Meeting adjourned.
All right.